Now with the Fox News alert, France under attack this morning. One person savagely beheaded, two others injured when explosions rocked an American company which has a location in southeastern France. French President François Hollande now confirming the worst. He says that was a terror attack.
Meanwhile, one suspect is in custody this hour. That suspect believed to have been radicalized to wage jihad. The French Interior Minister now saying another suspect was shot and killed in a firefight. Only one of them was known. Amy Kellogg is following the very latest live from London. Amy, this is developing fast and furious. What's the latest?
Hi, Brian. Yes, and a couple of accomplices, according to Bernard Cazeneuve, who's the Interior Minister, who you were quoting, who was just speaking. A couple of accomplices are being held, but apparently, Brian, more are being sought, and they are in the process, the French authorities, of trying to translate those Islamist flags that were found at the premises at Air Products at the crime scene. Clearly, a terrorist attack. It's being called that officially. I don't think there was any question all along, but I think initial reports had suggested ISIS. We don't know exactly the affiliation. We don't know a whole lot about the main suspect who is being questioned now, but he had radicalized, according to the French authorities. And, you know, the numbers of young Muslims radicalizing have been increasing at such a rate, and the numbers of people going off to Syria and Iraq and then coming back, it is clear, and it has been stated, that it is more than the authorities can handle. They are short on manpower. In the meantime, President Hollande, who was in Brussels dealing with a whole host of other important issues here in Europe, from the migration crisis to the Greek economic crisis, is hustling back to France, of course, to be there, conduct emergency meetings. He has appealed for rationale. He's asking people not to get too emotional and too worked up about all of this, but to sort of wait for this investigation to play itself out. Both he and the Interior Minister stating that France needs to, more than ever now, assert its values, not be cowed by these threats. I mean, France had been on a so-called red alert for several weeks now, this on top of the already heightened state of alert due to those attacks back in January at Charlie Hebdo. But bottom line, 2 injured, 1 person beheaded, and he had been carjacked apparently by at least the main suspect, beheaded, and then this suspect and possibly another and some accomplices went on and carried out an attack at the chemical factory. Brian, Steve, and Elizabeth, back to you.
You get carjacked and beheaded. That could be the scenario.
That explains it. Also, one other, thank you very much, Amy. One other tidbit from the press conference by the foreign minister is apparently they have not yet translated the message that was inscribed on the beheaded head of the man they murdered.
Yeah. In addition, earlier on, they were trying to confirm whether the head and body actually belonged to one another. That translation underway right now. For the meantime, we're going to bring in Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He is the chair of military theory at the Marine Corps University and founder of Gorka Briefing. Thank you for being with us this morning. What's your reaction?
Well, we are seeing a trend develop. If you just look at recent years, it's not just Charlie Hebdo. We have the attack against the Canadian Parliament. We have the cafeteria attack, the cafe in Australia. And of course, let's not forget the British soldier who was decapitated on the streets of England. This is a new trend in jihadi attacks. They are taking the fight to the mainland of the infidel. And this is a very serious attack because allegedly it was not just a decapitation. They were attempting to blow up this facility. They had gas canisters in the vehicle. So if that proves to be correct, they are upping the game to a next level of ferocity.
Dr. Steve just mentioned that they're working on the translation of what was written in the Arabic phrase that's written on the head of the decapitated person. Have you seen that before, where someone is writing on the head of a decapitated person?
There have been examples of this before in the region, so where fighting is happening, so in Syria and Iraq, but never before in infidel countries, so-called infidel countries in the West. So that's also new as well.
Dr. Gorka, what do you make of the fact that, you know, the intention was, as we heard from Catherine Herridge back in January, ISIS put out a propaganda video that they were going to behead people and set off bombs and stuff like that. What do you make of the fact that the apparent target was this company based in the United States of America called Air Products? apparently it is a gas company. They do things like liquid nitrogen and oxygen and various gas products. Do you think they had the explosions there to set off a larger thing, or do you think that it might have been aimed at a United States company?
Oh, I think both are absolutely possible. You want to look for, terrorism is about spreading fear. So you want to look for a symbolic target, but you want to look for one that creates as much drama as possible. From the point of the jihadis, we are all infidels. So after they establish the caliphate in the Middle East, they want to come after us eventually. And of course, the West has as its champion, America is seen as the pinnacle of Western civilization, which must be destroyed. So if you're taking the attack to Europe, to France, it makes a lot of sense to find a very, very attractive American target.
Wow, Dr. Gorka, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stand by.
All right, now let's go out to Zuhdi Jasser. He's a Islamic expert. He's joined us before, Fox News contributor. Zuhdi, Mr. Jasser, welcome back.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
First off, I just got to share with you this report. It turns out that the French are saying that they've been following one of these suspects since 2006. He has linked to a Calafist group way back then. So you're talking a long time they've been following this guy. Does this surprise you?
No, not at all. I mean, the interesting thing, the counterterrorism operations have changed. When we were fighting al-Qaeda, it was more of a top-down organization where we targeted the bin Laden types, the Zawahiris, those who were setting up operational attacks. ISIS is more of an inspirational organization, as Daniel Pipes wrote about after the Texas attack, and less organizational. So Salafi groups, those that believe in the fundamentalist reestablishment of the caliphate or some type of Islamic states, or as I call it, Islamo-patriots, those who will die anywhere, anytime, any place for the establishment of the Islamic State, are going to be people that could commit these acts. I don't like to call them lone wolves because they're not alone. They're part of the inspiration, and the conveyor belt for these attacks come from Salafist groups, those that believe in the dominance of Islamic states over the West, the secular democracy.
It's Salafists within the extremist community, correct? The Salafists are the worst of the worst.
Yeah, the Salafists are those that believe that everything has to be literally done the way it was done in the 7th century. Now, it doesn't necessarily portend that they want to commit acts of violence. The militant Salafists are like ISIS, al-Qaeda, or others, but Salafism implies those that really don't want anything to do with modernity, want to bring back everything the way it was done in the 7th century, and they are the pool, if you will, that ISIS gets its recruits from.
Dr. Jasser, we just spoke with Dr. Gorka, and we asked him about the inscription in Arabic on the head of the individual that was beheaded, that was left there on the fence outside of this factory. When you see that, he indicated that that technique, we'll call it for now, was not seen in this area before, but it had been seen in areas like Syria. What does this indicate to you?
Well, it indicates that this individual wants to make it clear and not let anyone mistake the fact in the West that this is part of an ISIS, part of a terror operation that he is participating in order to sow chaos in the West. Let the West feel that they've been victimized. Let ISIS feel domination, and let the leaders of ISIS take credit, because the leaders of ISIS didn't necessarily do this or ask for it, but they were inspiring it. So he wants to make sure that it's obvious what it was done and nobody mistakes he did. Now, well, remember, just a few weeks ago, we targeted in a drone Wahishi, who was one of the leaders that asked for the attacks in Paris on the Charlie Hebdo magazine that was the massacre in January. And I think this, we can't ignore the fact that this may be related as another pushback for that.
Could be right. Dr. Gorka, you're still with us from our nation's capital. Let us ask you about this. Something new in this particular case, and we just heard a moment ago from Amy Kellogg. Apparently, the beheading victim, who was dumped there at the location of Air Products in southeastern France, apparently he was carjacked someplace else. But then they symbolically brought his body to that particular facility and posted his head with these Arabic writings on his head. That adds a different dimension to it. It's not somebody they killed on location. They brought in the body.
Right. It really reinforces the fact that everybody is a target to them. We have seen this in the region. So even if, Dr. Jasser is absolutely right, even if this isn't operationally run by ISIS, it is definitely, absolutely inspired by ISIS. It's from the Middle East, from Syria, from Iraq, of people being decapitated and then their heads being put on a curb, on a fence post. Right. So this is the message they want to send. Whoever you are, whether you're just driving to work in your car, you are an infidel and you must be targeted.
Let me ask you this. When bin Laden hit us on 9/11, we were never at war with Afghanistan, but we knew there was a terror group inside Afghanistan, therefore game on. If we get hit, and technically we did, this is an American company, we know exactly where the terrorists are. They're in Syria. Raqqa is their headquarters. Would it make a difference if we hit them?
Absolutely. Think about it. We have just decided as a nation to deploy 450 trainers. The truth is, only 120 of those soldiers are trainers. The rest are a security force to protect them. ISIS has tens of thousands of fighters in the Middle East. Now they have cells in Europe, and we're deploying 120 personnel. We don't look serious. We look like the JV team.
All right. Dr. Jasser, Dr. Gorka, we thank you both for joining us on this Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Keen insight.